Hey folks, welcome back to another HP Gaming GameLINK video. It is that time. Welcome to Spooktember 2021. We're going to be talking about lots of ghoulish games and other sorts of spooky delights as we delve into all things crowdfunding. This is your Spooktober 2021 Gotcha Backer. Hey folks, welcome back. As I said at the outset, this is our Spooktober 2021 edition of Gotcha Backer. For those of you who don't know me, and you should by now, my name is Matt and I am here to talk about all things crowdfunding, what we're backing on Kickstarter and such in and around the interwebs. A few quick things of note before we get into all the spooktacular games we're talking about this month. We've had a few rivals, one of which is the wonderful Radlands. Look at that gorgeous bit of crazy. Very excited to get into that in the coming days. And we've also had Grey Fox's next one, Arcana Rising. Now, this won't do it justice, but there is a wonderful foil overprinting on this box, and I am super keen to get into that one. And who knows, we might even do it sooner rather than later. Very excited to see what's in store there, and very unexpected. I wasn't expecting it to arrive when it did, but that's okay. Now it's time, folks, to have a look back at some of the projects that we backed back then and give you some updates about them. So come on with us as we travel back in time, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of these games very soon. Okay, so the first game I want to talk about from way back is not too long ago. I think we originally, this one came to our attention in December last year, so it's not quite a year old in the campaign. However, it is a big game, one of the bigger games we backed, because there's not just one game, it's actually three, but there is just one in particular that I want to talk about from this animation collection. Yes, that's Simon's The Animation Collection, involving the Mayhem games for Looney Tunes and for Teen Titans. But there's also another third element to that collection, and that is, of course, Scooby-Doo, the board game. And what better month to talk about it than, of course, Spooktember. This is a deluxe edition board game with full painted minis, for those of you who aren't aware. And it's literally a cooperative game where you take on the roles of the Mystery Incorporated team and you head out into the world to try and stop those nefarious evildoers from hatching their schemes and realizing their dastardly deeds. This game has a plethora of villains already in the core box, but then of course there were stretch goals upon stretch goals that added extra monsters, some crazy moon ghosts and all sorts of stuff, classic villains from the TV series. And on top of that, Dick Dastardly and Muttley are making an appearance as part of this edition as well, which we're very excited about. The deluxe edition box glows in the dark. Super awesome. You can play as Scrappy-Doo as well, which they've decided to include. And you have a solo mode where you can play as Shaggy and Scooby and take on the villains on your own terms. High detailed miniatures. The actual Mystery Machine is its own mini, which is bloody fantastic. There is a plethora of options of enemies and nemesis to fight in the box, including a team up mode where the zombie and the witch can actually team up, along with Dick Dastardly and Muttley as well, and you can take on two villains at the same time, which does make the game infinitesimally harder, but you know, we like a challenge. So that is on target. I think they've just received their production copy for approval, and once that's signed off on, they'll begin mass production, so it's not too far away. I think originally slated for March delivery next year. We'll see how we go. It might even be a little bit earlier than that. Who knows? With the global shipping crisis, most of the games I'm going to be talking about that we've backed a little while ago are going to be struggling, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But that's all we have to say about the Scooby-Doo board game. We'll have a look and see what we've got next. Okay, speaking of mass production copies, this next game has just received the mass production copy, I should say, that has been proofed by the designer and also the publisher, and they are ready to go into mass production as well. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be seeing the copy of Skeptics that we ordered, which is a pandemic-y style paranormal investigation game where you were trying to track down and prove or disprove the existence of spirits from the other side. Now, this is a game where the spirits will appear at midnight every night in different locations around the museum or the asylum, depending on which part of the game board you're playing on. And you'll use your wits to potentially try to predict where the ghost may appear, track it down, and provide evidence of its existence. This is a game that looks to be a whole lot of fun. It looks like it plays very, very quickly. There's items you can pick up to help you. There's even magnifying glasses you can use for clues. A lot of die rolling as well, which I'm a little bit hesitant on, but the production looks solid, and if you're watching Gotcha Backer, you already know a little bit about this one. It looks like it's going to be the business and a perfect game for the season. We won't be receiving it in Halloween for obvious reasons, as we've already talked about. But unfortunately, so that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I think it's a game that's going to be worth the wait. That's Skeptics, and we'll talk about what we've got coming up next. Okay, next game I want to talk about is from one of my favorite publishers, that is Renegade Game Studios. Now, this one was a Kickstarter campaign that is exclusively for Kickstarter, and with this game will not, I repeat, will not be available in retail. So if you missed out on the campaign, too bad, so sad. I am talking about the behemoth of a game that is My Father's Work. Now, this is a game that is pseudo-legacy. I guess it's more of a generational game, because obviously as your generations progress and you hand down the knowledge, you have to figure out how much knowledge you've written down to actually pass on to your next of kin. And also what you can write down that knowledge at the expense of completing different tasks and scientific experiments, etc. The quest for immortality, time portals, all that sort of crazy stuff. The presence of this one on the game table is going to be quite extravagant. You've got different miniatures that you can use for different things. So one generation might have a female protagonist, next generation might have a male protagonist, the next generation after that, the groundskeeper might be the one who inherits the mansion. Who knows? It's entirely up to you. At the end of all the generations, the person who's completed the most scientific experiments without being hunted down by the villagers is going to be declared the winner. There is a sanity mechanic, so you see how mad scientist you can actually go. How mad is too mad? And the fact that it's Renegade means the production is going to be super polished. I'm really excited to see that when it hits the table. At this stage, they have had some delays, as most projects have, but obviously when it gets to the table, you will see it being unboxed right here on HP Gaming GameLINK, so stick around for that when it happens. Next big box game I want to talk about. Yes, Simon are making another experience here, but there is another entrance, I should say here, but there is a bit of a theme that we're trying to go for with Spooktober. I am talking about Zombicide, Dead or Alive. They are at the mass production stage, so we're very excited to see the pledges starting to get piled together. Minis are getting absolutely smacked in the face in terms of their production elements. The little peg boards and everything else for the actual player boards are all being manufactured in en masse, and it won't be too much longer before we start to see some shipping. As far as we're aware, who knows? We'll have to see what happens. I know they're also just finishing up their Masters of the Universe campaign at the time of this recording. That's just been concluded. So there is a whole lot of stuff going on with Simon and all the different projects they're working on. So it won't be too much of a surprise if we find a bit of a delay. Zombicide, Undead or Alive, Zombicide in the West, I think, in a Western setting, I should say. What's not to like? We went all in on this one. There's going to be some amazing miniatures, and the box this thing arrives in is going to be huge, but that's okay. We don't mind. Lots of choice, lots of options. I just have to make sure I train up Charlotte to get used to zombies before we start playing this one. Otherwise, I'm not going to have anyone to play with. But there's a solo mode, so that's kind of okay. Zombicide, Undead or Alive is going to be absolutely fantastic. Perfect game to talk about, perfect time of the year to talk about it. Can't wait to get it to the table. And last but not least, for the projects that we backed back then that I want to talk about, one that's very, very exciting. I had some amazing news come through on my updates over the last couple of days. I am talking about the pseudo-sequel / brother, sibling, significant other of this bad boy here. I am talking about Nemesis Lockdown, which is a standalone expansion / separate entry, I should say, into the Nemesis universe. And this one takes place on a planet. There is an outdoor part of the board where you can actually rove the planet's surface. All sorts of nasties, miniatures, and different alien intruder races that will cause havoc. Elevators, and the ability for the lights in the facility to be turned out, which means you are going to be going blind through the dark, trying to survive. And that, my friends, is just a whole lot of fun waiting to happen. Now, Nemesis is at its core a game about sort of survival horror, and this is probably the quintessential Alien experience rather than maybe the Alien role-playing game. This is a game that Lockdown, I should say, is a game that just takes what Nemesis had done and just takes it to the next level, refines some mechanics, creates a whole new host of heroes or villains to play as, depending on how you play the game, and just brings a whole new set of intruders, which are compatible with the other version of Nemesis. So you've got a lot of cross-play there as well, which I really, really like. The best news about this is they've finished their mass production. Mass production is done on this one and they're ready to ship, which means, pending any crazy shipping crisis, we should have our copy of Nemesis Lockdown and all the rest of the game by December, which is huge because we didn't expect it to get it until at least February. So that's very, very exciting. Nice to see that through all the shipping crisis, there are some companies that are getting a little bit of a win here and there, which is very, very welcome to hear. Nemesis Lockdown looks like it's going to take, as I said, what Nemesis had done and just ramp it up to 11. Very excited to see that hit the table. Huge table presence, lots of crazy components, lots of wonderful sculpts on the minis. Awaken Realms have just knocked this out of the park. Cannot wait to get my hands on it. And when we get our hands on it, you will see firsthand our experience when we open that sucker up. Nemesis Lockdown, check it out when it arrives later this year. And that wraps it up for all the projects that we've backed then, but now it's time to talk about what we're backing right now. Okay, so the first game I want to talk about is a little micro game. Now, we've seen a couple of these in recent months, and I think there's a bit of a trend here, partly because they, one, are easy to ship, two, easy to manufacture, and three, they're pretty much ready to go before the campaign is even concluded. Downside, they don't necessarily have a lot to add in terms of stretch goals, but plus side, when it's already a complete game ready to go, all you have to do is print the copies and get them out to the backers, which is kind of cool. I'm talking about a game called Micro Medusa. Now, this isn't a game that is by the same, it's not Prometheus Game Labs who did Micro Dojo, but it is a very similar style, similar idea. It's a game that will ship on one, in a thin envelope. It'll have a tuck box that you can assemble yourself to put all the components in. It'll literally be a small box, about a deck of a card size, maybe a little bit wider, for all the tiles to fit in. And it is a tile placement game. It is a 1 versus 1 game where you'll take on the role of Medusa and all the snake hairs and everything else turning people to stone. Or you'll take on the role of the hero trying to thwart Medusa and her evil plans. Very simple game, very simple strategy. I think the fact that it's 1v1 means it can be brought out pretty much anywhere while you're waiting for a beer at the pub, or while you're waiting for a meal, I should say, at the pub. Now that we can go out again, yes, we're out of lockdown. Micro Medusa looks the business, looks like a whole lot of fun. Very simple game, very easy to play, and just something that you can get a lot of playthroughs in very, very quickly, which I like as well. Check it out on Kickstarter. Campaign is still running. They are well and truly over the funding budget, so you'll be able to secure a copy. And I think it's about $5 US, so it's quite cheap. With some shipping on top of that, it's going to be quite low because it is just that thick envelope that's coming your way. Micro Medusa, check it out. Okay, a couple of smaller games now in the vein of Micro Medusa that we just talked about, but I think these ones here are designed to be a bit more tongue-in-cheek, and they've picked a good month to go online for Kickstarter, being the season that we are in. This one I'm talking about is a game called Reap. Now, this one is very tongue-in-cheek and may rub people the wrong way, but bear with me because there's method in this game's madness. This is a game originally created to poke fun at death because of all the coronavirus deaths that have happened around the rest of the world. Here in Australia, we have been incredibly lucky, all things considered, but the rest of the world obviously has suffered quite a bit, considerably. So someone thought it would be clever to create a game and make a joke out of COVID, and a bit of a up yours to the Grim Reaper in this instance. So Reap is a game where you take on the role of different Reapers and you run around trying to collect souls or block your opponents from doing so. There's a grid, a 3x3 grid of cards that get placed out every round, and you have to bid behind your screen on what actions you're going to take, and ultimately try and collect the most souls/victory points to take the victory or to reap the reward. So you can either you can sweep the board, you can keep some of the people on there, or you can take the titular action and reap as well. Very simple game, very simple rules. Nice little presence on the table with your little bidding screens and things, which is nice, 2 to 4 players. And I think it's a nice way of acknowledging the turmoil that people have gone through to get us this far and help us survive what has been a crazy time. So yes, it pokes a bit of fun at coronavirus and the pandemic and everything else as a whole, but it's a nice little way for people to just let off some steam, I guess. So check it out. Reap looks like a whole lot of fun in a little box, and we're very excited to see what happens when that arrives later, early next year, I should say. And the next one I want to talk about is something a little bit different, a bit more left of field. It is an RPG, but not a Dungeons and Dragons style RPG. There's not as many complex rules. However, this is a game called the RIP Off. It is a lovingly ripped off version, and you actually have to roll up a character that you'll be able to play as in a generic slasher style setting. Now, slasher is not just a clever play on words or a genre for this game. Slasher is a term, and you'll see it on the bottom of the screen, that actually denotes the different stats that you'll need to be good or not so great at, and it'll dictate your strengths and your weaknesses as you deal with the slasher mechanic and stats that go along with that. So I think they've thought about D&D as a slasher genre, and basically try to create something that, again, pokes a bit of fun at the genres we know and love, and you play a certain number of rounds until the killer, the axe-wielding maniac or the knife-wielding maniac, makes their presence known. And it's just going to be a whole lot of fun. If you're a massive fan of the horror genre in terms of film, this is going to be one to watch, because it's going to add a little bit of crazy insanity to your game nights if you've got the right group of people. If you've got someone who'd rather sit there and play Terraforming Mars, maybe don't get them to play this game. They might not be very much suited to the crazy zany fun that will come along with this one. The RIP Off is well and truly funded. It's currently on Kickstarter, I think, for another 10-15 days, so check it out. It looks like it's something a bit different, something a bit out of the box. Okay, so we talked about this in our Beyond last month, I think it was. Road to Infamy's Don't Go In There. Now, this is very much a push your luck game in the style of Spookies by Harbour, but with a much deeper storyline. You make your way foolishly inside a haunted house, and in order to escape, you've got to rid yourself of curses. And the idea of the game is to enter the game with as fewer curses as possible. I think lowest score wins. So you'll make your way in and you'll collect curse cards, but defeat curses, get curse tokens, that sort of stuff as well. The dice, the stretch goals that have been unlocked for this one are huge. There's a first player marker, which is actually the token from a Ouija board that you'll use to keep track of whose turn is or who's started the game. The dice are glow-in-the-dark dice. The box folds itself into a dice tower. They've really thought about how much they can pack into a small box. I think the box is similar in thickness to the canvas box, but much thinner, and just has a great table presence as you unroll or deal out the floors of the mansion. Don't Go In There, very much haunted house style game. You're not meant to go in there, but you're going to go in there because that's the whole purpose of the game, trying to find your way out and trying to get yourself curse-free. A lot of fun. Road to Infamy have put a fair bit into it. The production is going to be fantastic on that as well, as you can expect from them. And again, price point value for the base game is pretty accessible, which is one thing I like about Road to Infamy stuff. Most of the time, they are very accessible in that experience. So check it out. Don't Go In There. It's currently on Kickstarter. I think there's still, at the time of this recording, another 4 or 5 days before the campaign ends. Check it out. Don't Go In There. Road to Infamy. Going to be fantastic. And last but not least, the game that I am itching to tell you all about. I didn't know about it in the Beyond section last month, so my apologies for that. But this one is about to launch on Kickstarter. At the time of this recording, it will launch on Kickstarter in about 3 hours' time. And I am super pumped. I'm a massive fan of the video game franchise this is based on, and I'm very excited to see how they do this, because it is literally the original, the granddaddy of them all in terms of survival horror genre. This is Resident Evil, the board game, which is officially licensed by Capcom. There are minis, and it literally takes place. You open those doors to the Spencer Mansion, excuse me. You make your way into the lobby, and the game is on. You have to actually make your way around, find the clues, solve puzzles in true Resident Evil style, in a true recreation of the mansion incident in the Arklay Mountains. And I think, I don't know, I'm a purist at heart. I hope they don't stuff it up. I really hope they don't stuff this up. I believe you can choose between Wesker, Barry, Claire, and Chris, or is it Jill and Chris? Anyway, there's lots of different characters to choose from, and you can make your way through the mansion. I believe there's a solo mode as well, which is very cool. And there are other NPCs that obviously may suffer terrible fates unless you can get there first, true to the original game. Zombies galore, absolute manic chaos and dread as you make your way through the mansion. I believe resources are scarce as well, as it was in the game, so that's exciting to sort of see as well. Resident Evil, I think, is only going to run for 28 days or a 30-day run for the campaign, so be sure you get in quick. I'm very excited to see what they do with it. Very excited to see what sort of stretch goals they put in, whether they put in nods to the other Resident Evil games. It's a tile placement laying sort of style map system on the board. It's not one big board that you just lay out. It's, I believe anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, it's tiles that you actually make the mansion as you explore rooms and things as well. So the map is hidden effectively as you make your way through. Very excited to see what they do with it. Very excited to see it hit the table. Check it out, Resident Evil, the board game. It's going to be a big one. All right. And that brings us to the end of talking about the projects we're backing now, or at least all the spooky ones that we're backing now. It's now time to have a look beyond. All right, so now it's time to talk about all those things that are happening in the not too distant future. So we're really excited about some of these. I think, I don't know, I'm excited because I've played this first one in particular is not so much a sequel as is a second volume, if that makes sense. So at the start of Spooktober here, we unboxed the Stephen Rhodes Cryptozoic Dynamite Games triple pack of games. And these ones are designed to sort of play 10-15 minutes at a time. Fantastic quality, fantastic gameplay, and even the Aliens one, which I wasn't sure about, is still the business. This one is going to be Stephen Rhodes Volume 2. Same crazy artwork, same crazy gameplay, but 3 brand new games and themes. Cryptozoology, and I'm not talking about cryptocurrency, I'm talking about crypt as in Crypt Keeper. Cryptozoology, love is the best revenge, or living well is the best revenge. To live well is the best revenge. This is a game where, you know, someone's obviously tried to spite you, so by living well, you're getting the best revenge. I can imagine it's a bit Schadenfreude-esque, which is kind of cool. And I think the last one is Let's Call the Exorcist, because obviously you've got a friend in need. The same sort of tongue-in-cheek gameplay, artwork, very much naughty, but not really naughty. And I just love that style. So check that out. That's coming soon, I think in mid-November. So check it out on Kickstarter. Stephen Rhodes Games Volume 2 from Cryptozoic and Dynamite. Going to be big, going to be fantastic. Going to love it. Okay, the next one I want to talk about in our Beyond section is a game that I know a little bit about it, but not a lot because it's very much shrouded in mystery. It is it's billed as an aquatic survival horror adventure, and this is a game called Float. So from what I can gather, you are stranded on a bit of a flotilla of flotsam or jetsam, and there are things in the water that are trying to do you in. Whether it's a very much a Jaws style of game, I'm not entirely sure. The fact that you are stranded in the middle of the ocean, open water sort of deal, that's really crazy, really creepy. Launches on Kickstarter at the end of November, so check it out when it launches. Float looks like it's going to be a whole lot of creepy, crazy fun and definitely worth a look. And last but not least, something much more closer to home, and I think, I don't know, something about this appeals to me purely because it is a Melbourne publisher, which is awesome. At the same time, I know absolutely nothing about this game other than its title and the artwork that you'll see over here. This is a game called Drop Bears, and it is literally, from what I can tell, about that cuddly little animal that sits in trees and then, you know, drops on unsuspecting victims and eats them alive. Koalas sometimes get a bit of a bad rep in terms of the drop bear situation. The drop bear is, I'm sorry to say everyone, a mythical creature. And the Drop Bear game just looks like it's going to play up on that in spades. When I know more, you guys will too. But that's pretty much all we have about Drop Bears. It is a Melbourne-based publisher, so I'm looking forward to reaching out to them and seeing what they have to say. Who knows? We'll have more information as that one comes to light. But there you go. That's Drop Bears. And that's it, folks. That brings us to the end of another Got Your Backer for this month. I hope you enjoyed our Spooktober Got Your Backer. What other spooky titles did we miss? Is there anything that I didn't mention in there that I should have? What games are you backing? What are you backing on GameFound as well? If there's anything out there that we should bring to our attention, and by all means, pop it in the comments below if you have any suggestions. We look forward to hearing from you. Quick shout out to all our Patreon supporters. We love you guys being able to allow us to do all the crazy fun stuff we do. So thank you very much for that. Get back to the table, folks. Play more games. Stay away from the dark. And we'll see you back at the table for more fun very, very soon. Until then, though, it is, of course, bye for now.